Okay, I just need to wrap up a couple of things that I misspoke about or I didn't address properly in the last video. So those of you who saw it, you would have caught me, I guess, misspeaking. There was a place where I said NPs where I meant to say INTJ. I was speaking of where the NTJs, or I was trying to, can fit into, say, the corporate world, a place that is populated mostly by sensors. And I was talking about how it is the case that those people too can, something I want to add to that was that those people, despite the fact they have a strong, their so-called intuitive information gathering preference, that is an interest and usually an ability as well, and attendant in conceptual thinking, abstract thinking, creative thinking, and they can be quite visionary people. Part of the reason why they can be in the corporate world, though, you'll find more of those ends in there than any of the other ones, because a couple of reasons. I addressed this in one of my very first videos on this channel, where I was talking about what I love about the different IN types. Because the NTJs, although they're very freaky in their mind, they're usually very open-minded people, very unconventional people at heart and in mind. Very interested in considering things that have never been done and coming up with some very interesting solutions to problems and very unusual ways of getting to a destination in a strategic plan. So these people they're very, very wild in their minds. But the thing is, two things I think allow them, in the main, allow them to do well in the corporate world, those that go in there. And again, very many of the very artistic ones do go in there. They go in there early. They might do a BFA, but then they're off to getting a job somewhere in there, in some sort of consortium that has some sort of visionary focus, and that is in business and is going to be making some money. They can pass in there. I think there are two things. They can pass in the corporate world because very often those people have a very conventional exterior that really belies what's going on upstairs, the full range of their interests. So also they tend to be very competent in the things that one requires of people doing executive work. So again, they have a temperamental leaning towards tidiness, organization, planfulness, and then when they have the creative thinking mixed in with it, plus a logical turn of mind. They're people who can make the hard decisions. They can make decisions that one can usually quite well count on turning out all right, even when some chances are taken, because the risks they take are very heavily calculated risks, and they're risks that are calculated with usually a greater range of inputs, into the calculation that a lot of sensors wouldn't think of. And yet these people they've got the TE going on like mad. They've got it in the auxiliary as the INTJ does, or they have the TE running the show as ENTJ does. So they're very practical. They're very logical, but they're very objective. But they're very they also have a view to getting results, and measuring results. They want to see things affected in the exterior world, and they have usually a real knack for doing that. And then skill that they've developed with their drive and, making the most of the opportunities they have, or making their own opportunities. So, yeah, even much more stodgy people, much more conventional people will tend to trust them, and very often with good reason, because they can handle a load of responsibility. Those people, they really can. And the INTJs are probably more reluctant to have such a load. It's not their dream usually to be managing giant teams and interacting with lots of people, and that's not their cup of tea at all. And they'd much rather be doing the creative stuff. But if it allows them to, they also really want things to work. They've got that really practical sort of turn. So very often the INTJs there'll be room for them to advance in big orgs like that. And even though they're like, okay, that's going to be more paperwork, it's going to be more admin, I hate that. But they can do it, they can do it well. And they may decide, all right, it's, I'd rather, I didn't mention this in a previous video, the thinking, an INTJ nuclear engineer who's been in charge of massive projects in, like been the head guy, the head engineer for the building of reactors in Europe, for example. And he and I have a great time talking when we run into each other at parties. And he's an INTJ. Again, INTJs, ENFPs can quite, they either hate each other or they really like each other. I usually really find myself in the latter case. And when I come across INTJs. Anyway, I remember asking him one time, X, I said, X, is it the case that you're doing the really high level executive jobs you're doing? Is it because you just love, do you love them so much? Do you love all of the planning and the team management and all that stuff? Or is it that you, or how much is it that and how much is it, what's the ratio of that to, like, I'd rather it be somebody like me, i.e. someone who is just a little bit OCD and like just completely perfectionistic and completely on top of everything on the practical level and has a terrific knack for long range planning and like troubleshooting strange things that might happen and actually figuring out what the probabilities of these different things happening are and then tailoring the strategic plan accordingly and contingency plans and whatever. And is it more that you'll just sleep better at night knowing it's like someone like you in charge of the nuclear reactors being built? And he just he had a little smile and he was like, it's more the latter. So there we go. So that's something about the NTJs. As for the NFJs, like where those people too will show up much more often in the corporate world and in much more conventional sorts of institutions, and often in positions of a lot of responsibility, executive positions. Again, I know several INFJ creative directors, and I've worked under them in different advertising agencies, and they really, again, they're executives. They really manage things well, all kinds of things, and keep all the balls in the air, and they don't sweat too much while they're doing it, or they don't, we don't see it. The thing is, I think the NFJs, they too can, for the same reason, they have more of a conventional exterior, and again, they can be counted on. They're very reliable, they're very responsible, they're very organized, they're very planful. They can handle, they're likely to handle. They want to handle it, they can handle it, they do handle it. When you throw a lot of responsibility at them, even responsibility for stuff that they don't find all that great. They don't really enjoy themselves doing it, but they'll do it. They'll get the job done, and on time and on budget, and more often than not. And I think too that a lot of them are drawn to go into the arts or a lot of things that are much less practical. But what I see happening with those people is very often they might go to school for a long time and rack up a lot of debt and getting a humanities degree or even an advanced degree. But then when it comes to getting a job, I've seen many of, not all of them, of course, there are lots and lots of exceptions to all these things I'm saying in here. But I've seen a lot of them though go and then get as good a job as you can get in the arts, for example. There'll be that kind of compromise. Like they'll go and train to get a high qualification level in teaching, so that then they can teach that art at the university level and like obtain a certain amount of security and a pension and paid vacation, good paid vacation and good working conditions and whatever. Although that's, it's devolving more and more in academia these days. But anyways, that's what it used to be, and that's still what it is compared to a lot of other jobs that can be had. They'll go work in the corporate world, but they'll find an area where, there's some creativity in it, but there's still, again, a good income and benefits and that kind of thing. They're going to, those kinds of things will tend to be more of a priority for them than, to say, the NFPs. So, excuse me, I just wanted to say that. And here we are at another 9 minutes. So I'm going to come back and do the specific domains thing in the next video.